Have you ever found yourself standing in line at a cafe or maybe like waiting for a Zoom meeting to start, and you are just meticulously rehearsing a single sentence in your head?
Oh, absolutely. The dreaded mental rehearsal.
Right. Like you check the grammar, you upgrade the vocabulary, you construct this, absolute masterpiece of a thought.
A flawless piece of literature, really.
Exactly. And then it's finally your turn to speak. You open your mouth, and somehow you just sound completely like a robot.
Yeah, it all just falls apart.
It is a universal panic. And today, we are doing a deep dive into a blueprint that promises to cure that exact problem.
It's a phenomenon that plagues, well, almost anyone trying to master a second language. All that private preparation just vanishes into thin air the second you actually have to engage with another human being.
Which is why we are pulling our insights today from a really illuminating video by Daily English with Hannah. It's titled 15 Minutes to Speak English More Naturally Every Day.
It's a great piece of source material.
It really is. Our mission for this deep dive is to figure out the actual cognitive reasons why adult language learners end up sounding like walking grammar textbooks. And we're going to walk you through Hannah's highly practical 15-minute daily routine to just break that habit entirely.
And I think we need to establish the foundational thesis of this source right away because it challenges a very, very common assumption.
Oh, totally. Let's get right into it.
The biggest barrier you face when trying to sound natural is almost never a lack of vocabulary.
Right.
The barrier is a fundamental misunderstanding of what natural actually means in everyday communication.
We sabotage ourselves because our definition of like a successful conversation is completely out of touch with reality.
Exactly.
The source illustrates this beautifully with a story about a learner named John who basically falls into what we can call the perfection trap.
Poor John.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
all been John.
We really have. So John is getting ready to order a coffee. He stands in line, and he practices his order in his head like 20 times over.
Just running it on a loop.
Yeah. He curates this magnificent sentence. He's thinking, "Good afternoon. I would like to order 1 medium latte, please."
I mean, if you are grading that on a written exam, it is absolutely flawless.
Right. He gets an A+. So John walks up to the counter feeling incredibly confident. But then the cashier doesn't stick to the script.
They never do.
They never do. The cashier just smiles and casually says, "Hey, what can I get for you?" And John's mind just goes completely blank.
Total system failure.
Total failure. His beautiful sentence evaporates, panic sets in, and he just blurts out, "1 coffee, please."
Which is fascinating, really, because the cashier understood him perfectly. The transaction was a success.
Yeah, he got the coffee.
Right. But for John, it felt like this massive, humiliating failure.
Okay, let's unpack this, because looking at the mechanics of what just happened to John's brain there, it explains the trap perfectly.
Let's hear it.
It's like choreographing this beautiful, incredibly complex dance routine. You got the steps down, the rhythm is perfect.
Yeah.
But the moment you step on stage, the DJ plays a completely different song.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
And you just freeze. Right. Because you only know the routine to the other song.
What's fascinating here is how that visualizes the cognitive overload happening in that exact moment. The problem wasn't John's English proficiency at all. It was his expectation.
Right. He expected a very specific interaction.
Exactly. He was treating a simple, everyday social exchange like it was an oral exam. So when the cashier provided an unexpected input, John's working memory was suddenly just overwhelmed.
He had to do so much mental math in like 2 seconds.
Exactly. He had to discard his rehearsed script, parse the cashier's informal greeting, translate it, formulate a new response, and then translate that back. I mean, it's simply too much computation for the brain to do in real time.
And the irony is native speakers don't do that computation either.
No, not at all.
If you actually analyze the transcripts of native speakers, as the source points out, they aren't delivering these flawless monologues. They pause. They use incredibly short sentences.
They backtrack all the time.
Yeah, they stumble. They use, and they change their minds halfway through a thought.
Because conversations are not performances, They're messy, collaborative exchanges of ideas. When you try to deliver a perfect sentence, you are fundamentally working against the nature of human interaction.
Wow.
You basically stop communicating with the other person and you start performing for them.
That distinction between communicating and performing is huge.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to push back on this a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
Because as an adult learner telling me to just be natural and stop trying to be perfect, it triggers a lot of anxiety.
Why does that make you anxious?
Because in the professional world, We sort of equate complex vocabulary with competence.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Right. Like if I'm in a corporate meeting or I'm trying to impress a new colleague, and I deliberately choose to use basic, simple words instead of the advanced vocabulary I've spent years studying, I worry I'm going to sound unintelligent.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Feels like a massive risk to just drop that armor of big words.
It's a completely valid fear. You've spent years building intellectual capital in your native language, and you naturally want to reflect that in English.
Exactly.
But the source provides a really brilliant reframing for this exact anxiety, and it's a concept rooted deeply in social pragmatics. It states, and this is key, simple English isn't beginner English, it's everyday English.
Simple English isn't beginner English. That is a massive paradigm shift.
It really is, because it forces you to look at the actual function of language. Real, engaging conversations do not rely on multisyllable academic words.
Right.
They rely on highly familiar, very short phrases. Think about the expressions native speakers use constantly, like, sounds good, or I guess so, no worries. Let me think.
So they function more like social glue than actual information transfer.
Precisely. In linguistics, these are often called pragmatic markers. They aren't meant to demonstrate your vast intellectual vocabulary.
So what do they do then?
Their function is to regulate the social dynamic. They signal ease, agreement, and comfort. They basically tell the other person, hey, I am actively listening to you and we are on the same page, without forcing their brain to process new, complex semantic information.
Okay, so by forcing a big, complex word into a casual conversation just to try and sound smart, I might actually be creating a barrier.
Yes, exactly.
I'm increasing the cognitive load for both of us, making the interaction feel really stiff.
Exactly. The core insight here is that mastering 5 common pragmatic expressions and knowing how to deploy them casually is infinitely more valuable to your daily life than memorizing 50 complex words that you will rarely find a natural opening to use.
That is so true.
The ultimate goal of a conversation is connection. When you use comfortable phrases, you put the other person at ease.
Okay, that makes perfect sense in theory. We need to transition from complex and perfect to simple, everyday, and comfortable to build that connection.
Right.
But, knowing that doesn't automatically rewire your brain. Standing in front of a barista with a line of 10 people behind you, letting go of that rehearsed sentence still feels like jumping without a parachute.
Which is exactly why we need a practical mechanism to bridge the gap between theory and execution. You can't just will yourself out of perfectionism.
Right.
You have to train the adaptability muscle.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because that is exactly what Hannah's source material provides with this 15-minute daily blueprint.
It's a great system.
What I appreciate about this routine is that it doesn't involve staring at a textbook for hours. It's highly targeted cognitive training, and it's broken down into 3 5-minute blocks. So let's walk through the mechanics of how this actually works.
So the first 5-minute block is focused purely on output and momentum.
Right. Step 1, you basically just talk out loud about your day as if you were speaking to a close friend.
Just casual speech.
Yeah, you aren't writing a speech. You just vocalize real thoughts, like, I'm a little tired today, I had a busy morning, I'm looking forward to dinner. But the source lays down one absolute non-negotiable rule for this phase.
And it's a tough one.
It is. If you forget a word while you are talking, you do not stop.
And that rule is the entire mechanism of change for this step.
It's incredibly difficult to do because our natural instinct when we hit a mental wall, say we can't remember the English word for, like, exhausted, is to just freeze.
We just hit the brakes.
Right. We pause the whole mental operation to search our memory banks. But the source explicitly advises that you must bypass that pause. You use a simpler word or you describe the concept and you force yourself to keep speaking.
What you were practicing there is a high-level cognitive skill called circumlocution.
Circumlocution.
Yeah, it's basically the ability to talk around a missing word. When you freeze and search for the perfect translation, you are reinforcing the neural pathway that says communication requires perfection. But when you force yourself to describe the missing word, saying, like, I have zero energy instead of exhausted, you are training your brain's adaptability. You are bypassing that internal translation filter and learning to think directly in English.
It trains the brain to prioritize momentum over accuracy. You learn that a missing word doesn't have to derail the entire train.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've spent 5 minutes building momentum. The second 5-minute block completely flips the script. Now you switch from speaking to listening. The source instructs you to listen to just 30 to 60 seconds of a natural conversation.
Just a tiny snippet.
Yeah, this could be a clip of a podcast or YouTube video.
But we have to clarify the specific way you are listening here, because this isn't, passive absorption. This isn't a 20-minute lesson where you just let the English wash over you while you check your emails.
Right, you are actively hunting. But what exactly are we tuning our ears to find in those 30 seconds?
You are engaging your reticular activating system to hunt for that social glue we talked about earlier. You are actively scanning the audio for the pragmatic markers.
The no worries and sounds good.
Exactly. That makes sense. You are analyzing how native speakers grease the wheels of the conversation. And when you hear one, you pause the audio and you literally say it out loud. You are extracting the tool from their conversation to immediately install it into your own.
Which sets up the synthesis in step 3 perfectly, because the final 5 minutes is where you bring it all together.
That crucial step.
You go back to speaking out loud about your day,
Yeah.
just like in step 1. But this time, you have an active recall challenge. You must force yourself to integrate the specific natural phrase you just hunted down in step 2 into your ongoing monologue.
This is where you actually rewire the habit. You are taking a piece of passive knowledge and forcing it into active contextual use.
The source gives a great breakdown of how this elevates a basic thought. Like in step 1, relying on momentum, you might have produced a slightly stiff, factual sentence like, "My day was busy."
Which is fine. It gets the job done.
It does, but it lacks warmth. But in step 3, you take the social glue you found, let's say the phrase is, "sounds good," and you weave it in. Now your sentence becomes, "My day was busy, but sounds good. I'm looking forward to the weekend."
Now, notice how the core information is exactly the same, but the texture of the communication has completely transformed.
It really has.
It goes from a dry report of facts to a relatable human sentiment. It signals vulnerability and comfort.
And because the entire loop only takes 15 minutes, you can do it every single day without mental burnout.
That consistency is the engine of neuroplasticity. You don't build confidence by cramming vocabulary for 3 hours on a Sunday.
No one wants to do that anyway.
Right. You build the ability to adapt through hundreds of small, imperfect, low-stakes practice sessions, even if those sessions are literally just talking to yourself in your kitchen.
So to really solidify why this cognitive shift matters, let's look at the translation tests provided in the source material.
Oh, I love these.
Yeah, applying this theory to actual everyday scenarios highlights just how much friction we accidentally introduce when we overthink. So I'll take the role of the perfectionist learner relying on their textbook script, and you give us the natural, comfortable alternative from the source.
Sounds good. Let's hear the perfectionist.
Okay, scenario 1. It's Friday afternoon, you are wrapping up work, and a coworker casually asks about your weekend plans. The learner, trying to project total linguistic confidence, replies, "My weekend plans are quite enjoyable. I intend to spend quality time with my family, and it will be a pleasant experience."
Okay, grammatically, it has 0 errors.
Sure.
Socially, it's a disaster.
It's so awkward.
You sound like you are issuing a press release about your family. It creates a massive social distance. The natural alternative from the source removes all that armor. You just say, "I'm not sure yet. Maybe I'll spend some time with my family. Just relax, I guess."
Just relax, I guess. It feels breathable. It leaves room for the coworker to actually respond, instead of just staring at you in confusion.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try another one. Scenario 2. A friend at lunch asks, "How's work these days?" The perfectionist says, "My work responsibilities have increased significantly."
Again, very formal, very rigid. It just shuts the conversation down. The natural alternative is simple and efficient. Just say, "It's been pretty busy lately."
And finally, the redemption round at the coffee shop. The barista asks, "What can I get for you?" The overprepared learner says, "I would like to purchase 1 medium-sized latte, please."
And the natural version, "I'd like a medium latte, please."
There is a really striking pattern in all of these examples.
Yeah, what stands out to you?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, in every single scenario, the natural, socially comfortable sentence is significantly shorter than the formal, robotic version. We had this deep-seated assumption that fluency means using longer, more complex sentences.
We falsely equate verbal complexity with intelligence, but in real-time conversation, relaxed communication is almost always concise.
That makes a lot of sense.
When you use those shorter, natural phrases, you aren't dumbing yourself down. You are actually communicating much more efficiently. You are stripping away the friction of translation and performance.
You're making the exchange of information effortless for the listener. Real conversations aren't a stage for you to prove your intelligence, you know. They are a shared space where both people want to feel understood and at ease.
The individuals who sound the most fluent in any language aren't the ones utilizing the largest vocabulary. They're the ones who can express their current thoughts without tension, even if they have to talk around a word they forgot.
So what does this all mean? When we synthesize all the insights from Hannah's source material, the core takeaway of this deep dive is incredibly liberating.
It really is.
You don't need a larger vocabulary to sound natural. You just need to change how you deploy the words you already know.
And you accomplish that through consistent, targeted practice of adaptability, not rote memorization. 15 minutes a day of forcing momentum, hunting for pragmatic markers, and weaving them into active speech.
5 minutes of not stopping when you make a mistake. 5 minutes of hunting for social glue. And 5 minutes of synthesis.
Exactly.
The ultimate goal isn't to sound like a textbook, and it isn't even to mimic a native speaker perfectly. The goal is to be able to express your actual personality in English.
And it's important to remember for the listener that progress here doesn't look like a sudden dramatic breakthrough. You won't wake up one morning with a completely new brain.
It's much subtler than that.
It is the quiet realization that the friction has decreased. It's noticing that someone asked you a question and you answered it without running the sentence through a mental translation filter first.
That's a great feeling.
It's realizing you dropped a word, and instead of freezing in panic, you just naturally described what you meant and kept the conversation moving. Those moments of reduced cognitive load are the true milestones of fluency.
It's finally realizing that you don't need the train track anymore because you've learned how to steer.
That shift brings up a psychological element that I want to leave you with today. We've established that natural English is about reducing friction and sounding like your authentic self, rather than reciting a formal script.
Right.
Consider the moments when you rely on overly complex, rigid vocabulary because you are terrified of making a grammatical mistake. When you build that wall of formal language to protect yourself, what parts of your actual personality, your humor, your warmth, your spontaneity, are you accidentally hiding from the person you are trying to connect with?
Are you sacrificing human connection just to maintain perfect grammar? It is absolutely something to question the next time you catch yourself rehearsing a coffee order 20 times in your head. Let go of the script, embrace the friction, and just have the conversation. Until next time, keep diving deep.